Early morning. The serene sounds of the forest and the smell of pine trees fill the air. Silence. Tranquility. Not a soul in sight. Humans don't often find themselves so deep into the wild, so far out here, miles from civilization. Nobody. Except for me. The trees, unending in all directions, feel as though they've been asleep for a long time. But it seems that, due to my presence here, they're finally starting to wake up. A land of towering pines. A land of slow-moving creeks. A land of silence. The forest is dead quiet, but it's alive. The forest may be empty, but it's an emptiness that's all mine. I start by collecting some wood. I'll need a bunch of it if I'm going to create a decent shelter to keep the creepers and skeletons out tonight. Perhaps some cobblestone to accent the wood, and a bit of sand so I can make glass windows. And I'm gonna need food as well so I don't starve to death. The sun has only just risen, so I have about 10 minutes until it sets again. Better get to work. There we go. A very respectable cottage in the snow, dug partially into the ground, brick walls and a pitched log roof. Smoke rises from the chimney as my humble little cabin is buried in the snow. It's not much, but I put a lot of work into it, and it really feels like home. But this tiny cottage isn't going to be enough for me in the long run. Really, it's just a start, a foundation, if you will. I'm going to need something bigger, something with way more space, and better reinforcements to keep the dangers of the outside world at bay. This is more like it. But there's something I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, my friends are here, and they've been doing the exact same thing. That's pretty cool. Only problem is that, well, I feel like we're all a bit disconnected somehow. They're all so far away. Every time I want to visit someone, I risk getting buried in deep snow, falling off a cliff, or being out after dark. And that's ignoring how tedious it is to cross these mountains, this river, this desert, and this village that just happened to be in my way. We are going to need something a lot more efficient. We are going to need some railways. We're going to need a network of roads. I'll start by connecting some roads to a nearby highway, and then some smaller roads connecting to those larger throughputs. A great area to start a little neighborhood. But people aren't going to come live in the middle of nowhere. They need jobs, fun things to do, places to shop, or just enjoy nature. This place needs industry and commerce. We need a robust electrical grid. We need effective waste management and an extensive water system. But right now I just realized that my town has no schools. My residents' level of education is essentially 0. So I gotta start building some elementary schools, high schools, and universities. But I think I took a little too long because now all of my uneducated citizens have become criminals instead of high school graduates. And I don't really have a police force to stop them either. And it looks like they're starting to set buildings on fire, and I don't have a fire department to stop that either. Oh no! The residents are getting sick! Now I need to build 40 hospitals. But it isn't enough because now they're dying and I don't know what to do with all the bodies. How about 5 cemeteries right next to each other? Should fix that right up. But I built too much and now the city needs more power, but the pollution from the coal plant is getting people sick and I don't have enough money for solar and I need to install more water pumps because the demand for water is too high, but my sewage is polluting the river and now there's harmful microbes in the goddamn water supply? Fuck! Traffic is backing up and the hospitals are at capacity. My citizens aren't smart enough to hold high-end jobs, so buildings are just being abandoned, and no one's going to this giant stadium I spent so much fucking money on because, silly me, I thought I'd do something nice for my citizens when really all they needed was to not have liquid shit coming out of their faucets. My bad, guys. It's all too much. It's just too much. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. Do you remember the first time you ever visited a major city? In the year 2000, I visited New York City for the first time. Coming from a very small town in central Florida that was dominated by temperate oak hammocks, flat marshlands, orange groves, and ample parking day or night, I was very much out of my wheelhouse. I just remember feeling so small against the towering citadels of concrete that stood on every corner. The whole experience just felt electric. It was this whole new fascination that I didn't even realize I could have. Sheer wonder at the raw beauty of human ingenuity. I could not believe that these skyscrapers were things that people lived and worked in. Each window a space containing people, conversations, laughter, sadness. If it's an office building, apathy. Those mazes of hallways and rooms, spiraling upwards through a rigid geometric jungle of identically functioning concrete, intricate pipework, metal supports, and cement that held together millions of people's lives. It all seemed just beautifully impossible to me. And yeah, sure, those wide views of endless cityscapes can be beautiful in a sort of deeply modernized human being sort of way. But for me, it's the smaller intimacies of that dizzying metropolis that I found most fascinating. Every alleyway of weathered brickwork and rusty fire escapes, every immaculate lobby, the little alcoves in between skyscrapers, their silence seemingly in protest of the crowded streets and well-trodden parks. The thing is, a lot of you, I'm sure, have not been to a major city, and probably have no plans to visit one anytime soon. It's not like it's easy, or even cheap for that matter, but as goofy as it may sound, the next best thing, really, would be a video game. I've talked before at length about Grand Theft Auto 4's Liberty City. Its highly detailed recreation and scaling down of real-life New York City is extremely impressive for an early 7th generation video game. The care and attention to detail is something that I really appreciate, being able to both be wowed by the larger, more imposing locales of Liberty City, as well as being charmed by its smaller intimacies. The Witcher 3's Novigrad is equally, if not more impressive, offering a much smaller scale, but an even higher level of fidelity. Multiple districts, outskirts, sewers, highly detailed interiors, and buildings and locations with varied and deep stories both surrounding them and within them. BioShock's Rapture, a terrifying, sprawling labyrinth of dark corridors and chambers on the bottom of the ocean. The perfect setting for the type of horror that BioShock is trying to immerse you within, all the while feeling like a real city that's been lived in. Then there's Disco Elysium's Revachol, which is... really, that's just one you should experience for yourself. All of these cities are fascinating and impressive in their own unique ways, though not all of them serve the same purpose, of course. But one quality they all share is just how well they sell themselves as genuine places. They really feel like places that people actually lived. They made their living here, they raised families. These cities were and are homes. But of course, they're still gamified. Some of these cities are playgrounds for fast-paced, energetic, exhilarating power fantasies. Others are just a backdrop, scene dressing to provide scale, atmosphere, or just make whatever's happening more visually interesting. Though more often than not, what a video game city ends up being is a vehicle to move your story forward. Dr. Octavius didn't release a biological weapon in the middle of Hamilton, Alabama. He cracked it open in Times Square, the center of a city with a population of over 8 million people. The sequel to Jak and Daxter ups the stakes and simultaneously scales them down by taking another 3D platformer story about saving the entire world and retrofitting that into a city being crushed under brutal authoritarianism, shrinking the scale but helping to make the struggle a bit more personal. Spec Ops: The Line shows us the cruelty of war and its horrifying effects on civilians through a lens that doesn't often get an up-close view of war. A modern first world city, the sandblasted corpse of Dubai. These cities are perfect tools to help give a game's story higher stakes while keeping its scope a little more close to the chest. Remembering that for as large as the field of view is, the story is still human. But what about when the story is the city itself? Babbdi is a surprisingly deep game that focuses heavily on pure, unrestricted exploration of just a few city blocks. Somber, cloudy skies cast a dull yet brilliant light onto cold, dead stonework. Empty city blocks rotting like a corpse. An endless ocean of cold gray, stretching out into dreary nothingness. This city that sits on this muddy seabed hardly justifies its own existence. The empty alleyways, derelict apartment complexes, occupied by people who won't outright tell you they're unhappy here, but the absence of any sort of care or pride for their city can easily be seen as a reflection of their apathy. This is not a happy place. But it's difficult to truly say that it's a sad place either. It just exists. These dusty apartment blocks must have been built ages ago, and though they're inhabited by people, it seems they too have endured terrible neglect, so much so that they barely resemble anything human. Their faces, the clothes they wear, their homes, the things they watch on TV. All of it has been corrupted. A city that's just as broken on the inside as it is on the outside. But for a city as dead as Babbdi, it paradoxically ends up being one of the most alive spaces I've ever explored in a video game. Just about every building can be entered. Multiple floors, dozens of rooms, some with secrets to find, and others with nothing. The alleyways between these buildings can also have cool things to find or interesting places they can lead to, and a lot of the time they just lead to nothing at all. Just like a real city. All of it is there, but not all of it will have something to say. A playground, an abandoned church, a cafe, a train station. There are strange findings all around. This television displaying corrupted talking heads in place of a conventional news program. This man on a catwalk between buildings, telling you to jump, but promising you'll be fine. A dance party deep within the sewers. Babbdi's size, the square miles that make up the foundation of its world, is probably no bigger than Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field, but its depth is that of an ocean. Every time I go back to that city, I find something I've never found before, talk to someone I've never spoken to. Sometimes it's genuinely nothing. Painstakingly climbing a building with a leaf blower, only to find nothing of substance at all at the top. But the fact that I was able to come up here at all just adds another layer to Babbdi's beautiful little onion of believability. I can search through every building and find room after room with nothing of substance in them. But those rooms are there, and that means something. All of it can be nothing, but all of its nothing is still something. I've had so many games described to me with the phrase, "This game feels alive," but no game exemplifies this greater than Babbdi. This city doesn't just feel alive, it is alive.
One of my favorite things to think of when I think of home was we lived by a small nature walk by a river. I would often go for walks and go into the trees and explore, and sometimes I'd follow the trail all the way to the end and fish in the river. You could always find massive carp in this river, which were really fun to get. They were like dinosaurs. Sometimes I'd go and just skip rocks across the water. My record is 14 skips. It's one activity I just find really relaxing, and searching the shores of the river for the perfect rock was always a challenge. Occasionally, I'd engage in epic games of tag or hide and seek with my cousins and friends, and using this entire trail and under cover of trees, the game would take forever. It was awesome. This was always a place I would go to and get a good sense of exploration. Sometimes the river would even get low enough I could walk in the fallen trees and rocks and make my way to the other side. And there were even certain times of the year there would be these really viney trees I would grab and I could swing on. I would swing on those for like a solid 30 minutes. That place was so much fun, and every time I go back to visit my mom, I have to go visit it.
Years after its initial release, No Man's Sky is finally the game it was always supposed to be. The diversity of the different types of planets and moons and the things that you can find there have been amped up substantially since 2016. Side quests are a lot more robust, characters are more interesting to interact with, traversal is a lot better, along with freighters that you can use to send out members of a squadron to complete missions for you, help you warp to different systems, and store a lot more resources. There has been quite a lot added to No Man's Sky since its less than stellar launch. My favorite addition, however, is base building. Find a really cool spot on a planet that you think is special? Well, now you can just live there. You can build up some sort of headquarters to center yourself and to protect you and your belongings. Now it's not always just going to be you against the elements. Being as indecisive as I am, I always find myself creating a ridiculous amount of bases across multiple planets. I'll find a planet that I really gel with and set up shop there, but as I continue to explore the universe, I'll find another planet that I like even better and make a new base there. Now I have two homes, one for the plug and one for the load. I made myself a base on dry land, which is a bit generic if you think about it, but I don't have a low orbit base yet. So maybe I should make one of those too, because that sounds fucking sick. But once I finish that, I remember that the planet I'm orbiting has a pretty big ocean, and I think it might be really neat to have an underwater base. The snow on this planet makes me want to create something small and cozy to get out of the cold, so of course I gotta build that. But man, have you seen the rings on this place? This is definitely gonna be my new home. But the forests here are really beautiful. I could set up a little sci-fi cottage in the woods. A tropical beach house sounds pretty relaxing too. But then again, maybe a cozy cabin in the mountains is more my speed. After a while, I end up with so many bases that their numbers are easily in the dozens. I keep going. I keep expanding out into the universe, base after base, planet after planet, until I stop and realize I don't really remember where my first base is. And now that I think about it, I don't even remember what it looks like. The only thing I know is that it's just sitting there, alone. watching its sun rise and fall in the sky, counting over and over sunrise and sunset, another day where I still haven't returned. Left to rot on a world that I abandoned to continue colonizing the stars overhead. Does it remember me? Does that world even know who I am anymore? Has anyone else visited and wondered where I went? How long has it sat unused, unlived in, forgotten? How long have I been gone? I used to go to this shopping mall all the time when I was younger. I made countless trips to GameStop, Barnes & Noble, and the Regina Pizzeria that I still sorely miss to this very day. They even used to have an annual carnival here in the parking lot that I always look forward to going to. When I became a teenager, I would occasionally come here to hang out with friends. The first date I ever went on was at this movie theater. Those long halls lined with stores and restaurants were always flooded with hundreds of people. Today, it looks like this. Walls caked with dirt. Weeds growing from cracks in long-neglected cement. A parking lot that sat empty for the better part of a decade, fading in the sun. The paint so weathered from the elements, you can hardly tell that there were ever parking spots here at all. Windows and doors boarded up, as if they were expecting the end of the world. If I look hard enough through these giant windows, I can still see inside. I stare for a while, instinctually expecting that someone will eventually walk by and look back at me. But that someone never comes. Holes in the walls where bright letters once hung, empty frames with dead light bulbs, proudly advertising nothing. The only customers left that continue to patronize this long-forgotten bastion of early 2000s retail are the dead leaves blowing in the wind, crackling on the ground and against the locked doors. I almost wish I could have been here to see the last time these doors were locked, when the final customer left and never returned. When was the last time somebody walked through here? There was a day when they stopped caring for the plants, when the grass stopped getting watered. There was a day when I, unknowingly, without even thinking, walked through those doors for the last time. It was so long ago. I was in a completely different place in my life. My friends were different. The things that I cared about were different. I had different hobbies and interests, different goals for the future. The way that I conducted myself around friends, family, and strangers was different. The things I thought, the things I said. The contrast between now and then is stark, to say the least. So really, now that I think about it, was that really me?
One swirl of memories keeps colliding in my mind. It's our absurd 12-ish foot Christmas tree we had when I was a kid. We had this incredibly high ceiling and decided to fill that space in December with the biggest fake tree I have ever seen. Setting it up required ladders and patience, not that I was the one setting it up. I was in elementary school at the time. We would just watch as this festive behemoth was erected every year. My brother and I would lace the bottom 2 or 3 feet with our ornaments while the rest of the tree was tastefully decorated by my mother. The cats would hide amongst the branches, this being their only tree-like encounter since they were kittens. Now in my own house with an average ceiling height and an even more average pre-lit tree from Target that we bought at the start of our marriage, the bulbs are beginning to fade. Somehow the branches seem thinner every year. But the lower branches are all decorated by my 2-year-old daughter. To her, the tree might as well be 12 feet tall. The wonder the tiny lights cast into her eyes is not lost on me and reminds me of when I looked at the tree the same way.
How much storage is left on your phone? If you're like me, you're constantly scrubbing through it, getting rid of old apps you're not using anymore, files in temporary storage, old downloads you forgot about. And if you're also like me, it's photos. I take a lot of photos. I take pictures of everything. My friends, my family, pretty sunsets, dreary rain, and strange little corners of my world that I just found to be interesting. It may not mean a lot to most people, but that car parked by itself in an empty lot really spoke to me somehow. I can't explain why, but this plant next to a large window felt warm and inviting. And I feel like there's something to be said about this escalator and skylight, but I'm not sure what it is. I take so many photos that it's easy to forget a lot of them. Even though I am putting in genuine effort into a lot of these, it just comes across as an avalanche of unimportant pictures rather than actual fond memories. It just feels impersonal. But I think I may have actually found a remedy to that. A physical photo album. Back when I was a child and I would go on trips with family or school field trips, I would occasionally be given a disposable camera. A disposable camera with limited amount of shots I could take. Now this kind of seems like a pain in the ass today where you can kind of take pictures of anything you want as many times as you want, but to me it seems like more of a blessing than a curse, because it made me more conscious of what I was taking pictures of. That way the shots actually mattered. So what I've done is I've taken that disposable camera philosophy and sort of applied it to the pictures I take on my phone. I get rid of all the pictures that I don't like or that I messed up on or really don't mean much, and then I save the ones that actually mean something, and then I'll print those ones out and save them in physical Polaroids. Holding it in my hand like this little piece of plastic, somehow it feels like a tiny little window into a moment that has real significance, a moment that I now get to hold on to forever. I can share it with friends, with my family. I can refer back to it on nights where I'm feeling a bit more sentimental. I can share it with my kids someday. And when I'm old and wrinkled, hair much thinner and bones much weaker, I'll still have this physical book of memories that nobody can take away from me, that can't get lost in an ocean of other inconsequential photos. One that I can use to fondly look back on who I was, and to remind myself of who I am now, and always will be. I'll take these with me for the rest of my life. Who are you, really? Maybe you're a subscriber to my channel, or perhaps you're just stopping by. But when it's just you, when there's no one else around, there's no expectation to be on or to be something for someone, who are you when it's just you? What goals do you have for the future? What are the things that you love? Who are the people that you love? What photos are you going to put in your photo album? What are you going to do tomorrow? Everywhere you go, all the cities you visit, all the houses you build and the people you share them with, whatever place you choose to make your home, times will change. And as the days pass, they'll change more rapidly. You'll get older. Years will feel like months, and the world around you will become unrecognizable. But you'll always have those little reminders of home. It's more than that. Home is not a building. It's not the roof over your head. It's not the bed you sleep in every night. If you're like me and you're quickly approaching 30, it's likely that you've lived in a lot of places by now. I've lived many places, and not all of them felt like home. But I started to make some changes. I started to care more. I kept my space cleaner, decorated it with things I love. I spent more time watching movies in the living room instead of locking myself away in my bedroom. But most importantly, I made an effort to see friends more. I invited them over to my home, and they invited me to theirs. We watched movies, we played games, ate food. We talked more than anything. We got closer. I met my girlfriend, and we grew closer as well. I told her I loved her. Her home became my home became hers. You see what I'm saying? When I see the relationships I've built and the places I've gone with them, starting from a place that's truly mine, when I look at these people, my friends, my girlfriend, my family, that is home to me. It's something that you build, and you can create it from nothing. All the pictures in your photo album, these memories you create to build upon the foundation of who you are, that's just it. It's you. Everything you say and do and create and feel, the people you surround yourself with, and the love you have for each other. And when you spend time building and nurturing that home, you'll find that you can take it with you anywhere you go. It's something that we create for ourselves just by living our lives and chasing our best selves. But I am not completely ignorant to other people's situations. Not everyone has been as lucky as I have been. Life is not always easy or fair to everybody. Geography plays a major role, and financial hardship is always going to be a struggle for a lot of people. We're not all given the same deck of cards. But if you believe enough, if you want it enough, and you take the time to build upon that foundation no matter how long it may take, you'll find that home is just a place where you can look all around and see a reflection of your best self looking back at you, because you made it that way.